Some animals don't just live long lives. They break biology. They ignore the rules that say every living thing must age, weaken, and die. One of them has a heart that's been beating for over 500 years. One of them barely ages at all, and scientists are now using its DNA to research human immortality. Another one survived 5 mass extinctions, including the one that killed the dinosaurs. These aren't myths. These aren't exaggerations. Every single one of these animals is real, alive, and documented by scientists. And the last one on this list, it's going to change how you think about death entirely. In 1988, a marine biology student in Rapallo, Italy, accidentally discovered something that rewrote our understanding of life itself. He was studying a tiny jellyfish, barely 4.5 millimeters wide, smaller than your pinky fingernail, called Turritopsis dohrnii. He noticed something strange. When it got stressed or injured, instead of dying, it did something no animal on Earth was known to do. It aged backward. The jellyfish, already a mature adult, began reverting its own cells back to their earliest state. Not just slowing down, not just stopping, reversing. It literally transformed back into a tiny polyp, a blob of undeveloped cells, and then regrew into a full adult jellyfish again. The entire cycle reset. Scientists call this process transdifferentiation. What it basically means is that the jellyfish reprograms its own cells, like editing the source code of its body. Heart muscle cells become nerve cells. Nerve cells become muscle cells. Everything reshuffles and restarts. But that's not even the strange part. This jellyfish can do it an unlimited number of times. Under the right conditions, it may never die of old age. The only things that can kill it are disease, predators, or physical destruction. Right now, colonies of Turritopsis dohrnii have quietly spread to oceans across the entire world. Atlantic, Pacific, Mediterranean, hitching rides in the ballast water of cargo ships. Nobody planned it. Nobody noticed until it had already happened. There could be thousands, maybe millions of individuals alive today that are centuries old, and we'd have no way of knowing. In 2006, researchers from Bangor University in Wales pulled a clam out of the ocean near Iceland. They brought it back to the lab, cracked it open, and counted the rings on its shell, the same way you'd count tree rings to determine age. They counted 507 rings. The clam, later nicknamed Ming after the Chinese dynasty that was ruling when it was born, had been alive since 1499. Henry VII was King of England. Columbus had just returned from the Americas 4 years earlier. The printing press was barely 50 years old, and Ming was alive for all of it. The cruel irony? By opening the shell to count its age, the scientists accidentally killed it. The oldest individual animal ever recorded, dead, because someone wanted to know how old it was. But Ming wasn't a freak. Ocean quahog clams routinely live past 400 years. The reason is fascinating. Their cells produce almost no metabolic waste. Most animals age partly because their own cellular processes create byproducts that damage DNA over time. Quahogs are extraordinarily efficient at preventing that damage. Their cells are almost obsessively clean. Scientists are now studying their antioxidant systems closely, because whatever quahogs are doing inside their cells, we want to learn how to copy it.
The Greenland shark is not a beautiful animal. It's gray, slow-moving, mostly blind. Its eyes are usually covered in parasites, and it lives in the pitch-black deep water of the Arctic Ocean. It also might be the longest-lived vertebrate on Earth. In 2016, a team of scientists from the University of Copenhagen published a study in the journal Science that sent shockwaves through the biology community. Using radiocarbon dating on the eye lenses of 28 Greenland sharks, tissue that forms at birth and never changes, they calculated the ages of the sharks. The oldest one?
approximately 392 years old, with an error margin that puts it potentially as old as 512 years. That shark was born sometime between 1504 and 1624. It was swimming through those same dark Arctic waters while the 30 Years' War was being fought in Europe. It was alive during the entire age of sail. It has been alive for every single significant event in modern human history. And it only reached sexual maturity at around 150 years old. Greenland sharks grow at roughly 1 centimeter per year. They're not in a hurry. Their entire biology runs at a fraction of the pace of most animals. Cold water, slow metabolism, minimal cellular stress. The formula for extreme longevity, it turns out, is basically just slow down. What happens next surprised researchers even more. There are likely Greenland sharks alive today that are older than 500 years.
This one is less about how long an individual lives and more about something stranger. A species so indestructible, it has survived every single mass extinction event in Earth's 4.5 billion year history. Tardigrades are microscopic, about 0.5 millimeter long. You'd need a microscope to see one clearly. They look like 8-legged bears, which is why scientists nicknamed them water bears. And they are essentially unkillable. Expose them to temperatures of minus 272 degrees Celsius, just 1 degree above absolute zero, the coldest temperature physically possible, they survive. Heat them to 150 degrees Celsius, they survive. Expose them to radiation doses 1,000 times lethal to humans, they survive. Crush them under pressure 6 times greater than the deepest ocean trench, they survive. In 2007, the European Space Agency sent tardigrades into open space. No suit, no protection, just raw vacuum, cosmic radiation, and solar UV exposure for 10 days. 67% of them survived. But here's the mechanism that makes this possible, and it's genuinely one of the most remarkable things in biology. When conditions get extreme, a tardigrade enters a state called cryptobiosis. It pulls all the water out of its own body, reduces its metabolism to 0.01% of normal, and essentially becomes a dried out husk. Its cells don't age. Its DNA doesn't degrade. Time for that tardigrade stops. There are tardigrades in moss samples collected in museums in the late 1800s that were rehydrated over 100 years later and walked away. Not dead, just waiting. Everything on this list has been impressive, but this one is different because it flips the entire concept of aging on its head. Most animals, including humans, age because our cells gradually lose their ability to copy themselves perfectly. Every time a cell divides, the protective caps on the ends of our DNA, called telomeres, get slightly shorter. When they run out, the cell can't divide properly anymore. That's aging at the cellular level. Lobsters produce an enzyme called telomerase in extraordinary quantities. This enzyme rebuilds telomere length after every cell division. In theory, it means their cells never run out of road. They can keep dividing, keep rebuilding, indefinitely. And here's where it gets genuinely weird. Older lobsters don't get weaker, they get more fertile. A 10-pound lobster, which is very old, possibly 50 years or more, produces eggs at a higher rate than a 2-pound lobster. Its shell is thicker, its grip is stronger. Lobsters don't die of old age in any conventional sense. They die because molting, shedding their shell to grow, gets harder as they get bigger. Eventually, a very old lobster exhausts itself during a molt and doesn't recover, or gets eaten, or infected. But its biology was ready to keep going. The body didn't give up. The world just got in the way. The largest lobster ever recorded was caught off Nova Scotia in 1977. It weighed 44.4 pounds and was estimated to be over 100 years old. It had been growing continuously, without slowing down, for a century. 5 animals, 5 different strategies for outlasting death.
One reprograms its own cells. One barely produces any waste. One slows time itself. One can pause its biology for over a century. One refuses to age at all. The strange thing is, none of these abilities evolved because these animals were trying to live forever. Longevity was just a side effect of solving other problems: survival, efficiency, adaptation. Which raises the uncomfortable question: if death isn't inevitable for them, was it ever really inevitable for anyone?